Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me again. So, I'm doing a series called Do You Know Who You Really Are? And it's about our identity in Christ. Last week, we talked about God's love for us. And that is a foundational truth that is necessary for everything else we will talk about to be built on. If you're just tuning in for the first time, welcome. But I encourage you to go back and view that video. Today, I want to talk about our righteousness in Christ. So 2 Corinthians 5:21, like John 3:16, is another one that most of us know. He became sin who knew no sin, that we might become the righteousness of God in him. But even if we can quote this by heart, we need to be sure that we really understand this, because it can make a big difference in whether the life we live is one of victory or defeat. Being righteous in simplest terms means that we are in right standing with God. In other words, in God's eyes, he sees no wrong in us. Now, I know that might shock some of you, but don't tune me out just yet. I'm not saying that we don't sin or that God doesn't care about sin, but because we are in Christ, God sees us without sin. That is what 2 Corinthians 5:21 is saying. You see, Christ, who was sinless, became sin for us. When he died, sin was atoned for and done away with. God raised him from the dead to new life without sin, and when we are born again, the same thing happens to us. Colossians 2:12-13 says we are buried with him in baptism, in which you also were raised with him through faith in the working of God, who raised him from the dead. And you, that's us, being dead in your trespass and the uncircumcision of your flesh, he is made alive together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses. Awesome, right? I didn't always understand this though, and maybe some of you can relate. You see, I got born again and baptized at 17 and was told that I was forgiven and made righteous. Then life happened, and I was devastated by hurt and betrayal. Because of the trauma I had experienced growing up that I had never healed from, I came to believe somehow that I deserved what happened to me. When I took my first drink at 21, I discovered that it covered the guilt and shame, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel that emotional pain. I chose that way to cope, which ultimately led to an addiction to alcohol. Many of you might know that alcohol use can lead you to do things you would not normally do. So basically, I got born again, then became an addict, and ended up sinning even more than before I got saved. Now I was convinced that I had lost my righteousness and somehow had to get it back. I spent years trying to do righteous acts, but nothing ever worked because nothing ever could. Our right standing with God comes because of what Jesus did, period. Titus 3:5 says, not by works of righteousness by which we have done, but according to his mercy he saved us. Righteousness is not only a gift that comes with salvation, but we can't be saved without it. Jesus took our sin nature that separated us from God and gave us the righteousness that we needed in order to become one with him. We are born again of the Spirit, according to John 3:5, with a new nature that is holy and without blame. You can find that in Ephesians 1:4. For years, I struggled believing I had lost my righteousness until I finally came to realize that if there was no good work I could do to earn it, then there was also no bad work I could do to lose it. This revelation set me free, and it's another foundational truth that we need to understand. Remember, our behavior is going to reflect who we believe we are. In Philippians 1:11, Paul prayed that we would be filled with the fruits of righteousness, which are by Jesus Christ to the glory and praise of God. Good works, healthy behaviors, living a holy life are the fruits of righteousness, not righteousness itself. Knowing that we are children, loved, and without blame before our Creator helps to increase our love for Him, and good works will be a natural overflow of that relationship. Remember growing up and getting in trouble? Your parents would be upset and you'd feel guilty. I'm guessing that you would not choose that time to ask for a raise in your allowance, right? No, you'd wait for things to calm down until they didn't seem mad anymore or the guilt would go away. We treat God the same way when we don't understand our righteousness. Jesus said in Mark 11:24, "Therefore I say to you, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them and you will have them." If we feel guilty or think we're unworthy, then we won't even ask, much less ask in belief. And then we wonder why our prayers aren't answered. We have been justified by faith, according to Romans 5:1. Justified means just as if I never sinned. As a born-again children of God, we need never be ashamed. That's why Romans 8:1 says there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Other people might condemn us, but God will not. If every time you mess up, you think that you have to wait to get things right again, then your relationship with God will be at best severely strained, and at worst, you might just give up altogether. I needed God's help to stop drinking, but unless I stopped drinking, I didn't think I deserved to ask for his help. And the longer that cycle kept going, the more I was convinced that God had given up on me. He didn't, though, and he never would have, because he didn't see me the way I saw myself. I saw myself as unworthy, but he saw me as his child, loved, redeemed, and yes, righteous because of Jesus. Hard to believe, but scripturally true, and I can't tell you how freeing it was to finally understand this. Our righteousness is not based on anything we have done or ever could do, but solely on what Jesus did. Romans 3:21-22 says, "But now the righteousness of God, apart from the law or works, is revealed, being witnessed by the law and the prophets, even the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ to all and on all who believe." Our righteousness comes through faith alone and does not change by our behavior, and it's so important to understand this. Knowing this is what gives us the confidence to pray in faith and receive answers. This knowledge is our weapon to defeat the lies of the enemy when he tries to point out our flaws and failures. It also gives us the strength we need to resist temptation. There is more I could say, but again, search the scriptures for yourself. Let your faith grow through the hearing of the word. Establish in your heart who God says you are, because the world and its cultures and systems are trying to do just that. They will label you and put restrictions on you based on those labels. If we allow a world that doesn't even acknowledge God to define us and our future, then anxiety, fear, and depression are inevitable. But if we know that our true identity is children of God and the righteousness of Christ, and no matter what happens in this world, we can still have peace and maintain our hope. So I hope I've helped somebody with this, and if I have, give me a like and share it with someone else. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me at passionministriesinc@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to try and answer them for you. If you have never received this gift of righteousness through a relationship with Christ, please call us at Passion Ministries, and we will be happy to pray for you. Next time, I will be covering a subject called spirit, soul, and body. This concept is based on 1 Thessalonians 5:23, and it will help explain even more what we have talked about in the last two videos. Be blessed, and I'll see you next time.